Let me welcome you to our conversation segment on the Signature Show this Sunday. There is a new government and there is a new conversation. Never mind the court processes. Nigerians are interrogating already what kind of government they want to have. But in that conversation, Nigerians are beginning to ask questions towards what kind of nation is Nigeria moving. And in answering that question, really, there is another critical question. And that is, are there values driving Nigeria towards a particular destination? Does Nigeria have its abiding values, its abiding ethos, such that whoever is in government is guided by those values? Tough questions, if you ask me. But tough questions demand tough answers. And I think this afternoon, I have a gentleman who in generation, who in experience and exposure, will talk together and try to seek answers to that question. Let me welcome this afternoon Nigeria's ambassador to Burundi, His Excellency Amoso. Am I correct? Let me correct.
Onyeagba.
Onyeagba.
Yeah, thank you
Good.
very much.
Excellency, you're welcome.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. You saw the way I opened this thing. I'm a little worried. My generation is an exiting generation.
That's correct.
But what are we leaving behind? If you asked me, I said kind of confusion. Do you think we're leaving behind confusion?
Thank you very much, and it's my pleasure being on your show. Nigeria is a very interesting country. This is a nation that is endowed with a lot of human and natural resources. We thank God for thus far we have come. But when we look at the history, you know, there's this common saying that to make projection into the future, you need to look a little bit backwards. Talking about the value system, I think that generally our value system has deteriorated over the years. And I will agree, I'm a young man, but I think that there's a lot of confusion that this exiting generation is leaving behind. We are all part of it, and the way I'm personally built and developed is such that we see a problem and we find a way to solve it. But again, a good solution to problems, must come from a very good diagnosis of those problems. You don't begin to treat malaria when what you have is headache, and vice versa. Otherwise, once the prognosis is wrong, obviously we know what the outcome is going to be. So I think that time has come, and this conversation, we are stepping into a new government, without a doubt, the government of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. But beyond that, governance is there, value system is there, which basically guides everybody from our families to churches, to the society, to cultural settings that we have across the length and breadth of the country. So to that extent, I think the conversation must hold at this point in time concerning what kind of value system we have.
Let me interject here. If the value is supposed to drive national thought, national action, it should be more than the political party,
Absolutely.
more than the government.
Absolutely.
It should even guide the judiciary. It should guide science and technology. Yeah. Once upon a time, this country, they say, Nigeria had a set of guiding values towards which it was building to become a great nation. But there are doubts today. Have you tried to think of what has gone wrong?
Yes, I have thought about your question. There's a particular verse or stanza in the old national anthem that talked about the fact that though tribes and tongue may differ, but in brotherhood we stand. What that meant is that there's a recognition that there are lots of tribes. In fact, if you like, call it very many nations that come together to make up the country. I'm a diplomat, and in diplomacy, one of the things you find while you travel around and about the nations of the world is to find out that the people, a group of people in Nigeria can actually be a country elsewhere. In East Africa, for example, I work in Burundi. Burundi is just like one state in the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Rwanda is just like one state out of the 36 that we have in Nigeria. So clearly, there is this understanding at the time that that first national anthem was written, taking cognizance of the fact that we are different people. But though we are different, there are things that bring us together. So, yes, that is how we started. But over the years, we are beginning to find solace. We are beginning to find expression. We are beginning to find unity more in the things that divide us than the things that separate us. To such an extent that, people see themselves as members of a tribe first before becoming Nigerians. Not that there's anything wrong with you identifying yourself that you come from a tribe, but it appears that the interest of this tribe and perhaps the interest of the religion now trumps national interest and values. And we can date back to see what has happened over the years. I was trained by, my mother is a primary school teacher, was a primary school teacher. My father is a pastor. There were things that you couldn't do. I remember before I even tried to get married, my father said, no, you can't marry without coming home to discuss it. He said to me clearly, marriage is not something, I need to tell you how it works in the family. And by the time I made time to go and meet him, he said, listen, I cannot follow you to go and marry and then you come back tomorrow and say you're divorcing your wife. That's not, if it has to happen, it will happen in my absence. So at least I will know that I have done my own part. So he put me through the rudiments, but for me, it's not something you just wake up and he passed it on to me. You wouldn't just come and see any girl and say you want to get married to the person. So the rule is that you have to do a lot of things. You have to study. You have to even ask questions, inquire. What kind of family? What is this? And know the golden rule. Once you are in, there's no going out. So it's a bit challenging because we're coming from that kind of training and that kind of background where homes break. I've attended a wedding and before I got to the venue, they said that the people sent a message and said they're not able to get married in the first. Then they've decided they're going to, everybody's going to go their separate ways. We've attended weddings and a couple of months down the line, everybody have gone their separate ways. So the opportunity is right there for us to begin to interrogate these values. What has happened in the past, what we're currently doing, and how we can improve. We have, it's like no matter if you're headed to Lagos right now, and you eventually realize that you are in Sokoto, there's no way. The only thing you need to do is to stop and make a U-turn. Otherwise, you're moving further from your destination. So, yes, we're in a new government, but the time is right for us to begin to interrogate the value system that we have, begin to identify where we went wrong, because we should actually be converging together. We should actually be discussing on what are the issues and what are the strategies and what are the things that we can do. This is a nation where scheme like National Youth Service Corps was introduced. The idea behind it is that you went to school in Enugu, you should be able to go to Sokoto to serve so that you'll be able to appreciate the culture of the people of Sokoto. You went to school in Lagos, you should be able to go to maybe Meduguri or something and be able to, not just the language, it's also to look at what has happened. And that was why you found out that a lot of people of your generation didn't have a problem marrying people from other tribes because, that's why you find a lot of people living in all parts of the country because they go there, they settle, the understanding is that you're accepted and that this is a one nation. But as we are gradually moving, it seems that we are, everybody seems to be more self-conscious.
Ambassador,
Yes.
I'll bring in the role of the politician in either creating this national unity, a oneness, or in fact undermining it. But before I do that, there is this concept of universal justice, universal merit, by which American institutions are said to apply same rule across board, and that makes their society to work. But here in Nigeria, our experience seems to be, leave that thief. He is my own thief. Don't touch my thief. Leave that incompetent person in that position. That incompetence is mine. And therefore, there's no universal merit and there's no universal justice. How can we begin to, what kind of conversation should we be having to help this universality in application of values?
Thank you very much. It's a very interesting question that you have brought up, and I'll give you my views as to what I think is the way forward. The way the country is set up, we put, the founders of the nation put a lot of work in trying to unite the country, and that's why in the system they introduced something like federal character to say that there should be representation of every part. If you're hiring for a ministry, if you're hiring even at management level, you know, where you come from, the states you represent, and all of these should actually be part of the discourse. While that is good, intrinsically we have been promoting incompetence and inefficiencies in some of these things that we did. While federal character is important, the reason why countries like America has thrived is that, yes, they recognize that they are a 50-state nation, or 50 states nation, yeah? But they have managed to elevate competence. What is the American dream? They had something they call the American dream that basically says you can achieve anything you want, provided that you work hard for it. So I feel that at this point in time, we need to begin to move away from the representation and begin to focus on the kind of quality and competence that we want to build. It doesn't really matter, it shouldn't matter who leads, particularly at the political level. The question should be, is this person qualified? Does he have the capacity to, what exactly does he bring to the table that is better than the rest of the people? I think that when we begin to have conversation around this, because unknown to us, within federal character, has this understanding of sharing. And whenever the discussion is about sharing, not what you are bringing to the table, everybody begins to feel that they are entitled to something. Because our nation has moved from what we are able to contribute to what we are able to get. And that's why conversations have been had about, around and about people that are eating on the table and people that are waiting for these people to. And that's where my turn, your turn, and some of these things come from. Oh, they have done 4 years. Oh, they have done 8 years. It is our turn to do. So whenever people now get elected to the position, it's not just about them, because personally I've been a politician, so I understand. The expectation from the people is also part of the things that drive politicians to what they do. You are a representative of the people. What you find is that if somebody's husband is sick, they call you on the phone. If somebody's mother is sick, they call you on the phone. If someone drives and then he had an accident, he calls you on the phone. Not that there's anything wrong with this. But the expectation is that you are in a position, and therefore, they even give you instances when this other person that comes from this tribe was there, he did this, he did this, he did this, he did this. Oh, you are there, how many people have you employed? Oh, you are there, how many people have you done this and that for? But the question is, nobody's asking whether
the competence those people
what are the
bringing
competence
to the
level,
table.
What have they done specially that will separate them, that will give them the opportunity to be able to come to that level? So these are the two issues. And I believe that while the founding fathers felt that it was important that the basis to move is inclusion, I think that we have also come to the point where we need to ask ourselves, it is about sharing. We can't continue to share. one day you will wake up and find out that there's nothing to share. You know, so the question is, what should we be contributing? Because if it's about contribution, then you find out that people will have something to bring to the table before they come to a negotiation table. Other than whether you know it, whether you don't know it, just jump into the table and go and get our own share. Oh, they are going to Abuja. Please go to Abuja and get our own share. If they are fighting, fight for us. If they are doing, do for us. If they are whatever they are doing. So these are part of the issues. And I think that we will begin to, because if competence is what we are up and about, you'll find out that people will begin to hone their skills to be able to improve their competency level, to be able to face,
to qualify, to
you
come in.
get qualified to get to a particular position, and you begin to work very hard. And there should now be a relationship between your history, your experience, your competence level, to your reward, or to the reward we get from the system. A situation where people get rewarded for not doing anything, or for not, or just by knowing, or just by, you know, because this is our chance and all of that. So these are the concerns I have. And
Yeah,
I believe,
Your Excellency,
yes.
Let me draw your attention to the line: politics is a game of number, or when politicians are campaigning, they use these fault lines to win election. And politicians are supposed to produce the leadership. So if the leadership is stewed, is drawn into divisive rhetoric in order to win election, they want to win election. Don't vote for that person because it is not their turn, for instance. Don't vote for that person because he's a Christian or a Muslim. Don't vote for that person because they have held power for so long. And all these things shun the conversation, shun the campaign of competence. This man has held this position, had this experience, and therefore if you bring him there, he has something to offer. That is not the conversation. How do we, Your Excellency, begin to help politics and politicians to get out of this mire? Because it's a mire that it can drown us.
Thank you very much. Let me say this. Yes, let me say this. A leader is selected from amongst the people. So what you find in leadership is what exactly is the position with the people. I hear you loud and clear that these fault lines actually come to play. Let me tell you why. The first time I wanted to run for elections, I went to my people, to the very young people, and I said to them, listen, I'm one of you. I want you to elect me, support me, to do this and do this and do that and all of that. And then after the meeting, everybody stood up and went away. A couple of minutes later, I began to get barrage of abuses because you called us, you didn't give us anything. Are you serious at all? You said you want to run for political office, and then you call people without giving them something and all of that. Now, there is already this understanding that once it's politics, it's people that have money.
It has a cost.
That has to be, if you are not ready, you know. And this
now,
is,
mark that word.
Yes.
If you are not ready.
Yes.
And being ready means.
Yes. And being ready means
bring your money.
Nobody's asking actually where your money has come from, whether you duped somebody or whether you took government money and all of that too. So I am very careful to to ascribe blame to politicians that it is just their fault. Because before I became a politician, I wasn't. I only made an attempt to say, listen, the criticism part is the easiest part. The most difficult part is to throw your hat in the ring to say, I think I have,
what it takes to create a change.
I think I have what it takes to be able to get onto the system. That's always the difficult part because it's a big risk to take. Sometimes you leave very plum job. Sometimes it's at the risk of your family. Sometimes you expose yourself needlessly. But someone has to do the job. Someone has to come and put their hat in the ring and say, it's my head up against the block. We can't just continue with what is going on. Now, I think there's a lot of education, and that's why I'm happy with this kind of conversation that we're having. I think the people need to begin to understand that politics and the people is just a class issue. When you go to National Assembly, an APC senator is friendly with the Labour Party senator, is friendly with the, at that point, it's like members of a club. So whichever job, whichever way you used to enter, it's not an
It
issue.
doesn't count again.
It doesn't count. We have eventually found ourselves here. So how can we work together? How come when budget is being shared or when budget is being,
Put together and projects
padded or whatever, how come they don't have a problem when it
problem.
comes to that? How come there's no problem sharing money or doing? How come the problem actually comes when it's time for the elections? So this is the kind of conversation that we must bring to the people. To say, listen, once you come to me to begin to play religious card, obviously I know it's a no-no. Once you come to me to begin to play ethnic card, I should know that it's a no-no. After all,
when you get there, there's the ethnicity.
When you get there, I haven't seen anybody challenging, to say that you are from North or you're from South. No, it's not an issue right now. Right now, people are clamoring to get certain positions, either at the, in the 10th Assembly leadership. This time, the issue of where you come from or religion does not come to. People even think that it's normal for, once I've been elected by my people, I can, so you go to them, you talk to them, talking about your vote and all of that. How come it's when we now want to move into the real election that this, and the annoying part of it is that lives are lost. Our young people get exposed needlessly just on the account of the fact that they can't do anything. So I think that we must elevate this conversation. We must bring it to the consciousness of the people that things are not the way they seem or we make it present. Nigeria is such a blessed nation. It's not a problem for an Igbo man and an Hausa man to do business. They've always done it. It's not a problem for a Yoruba man and an Hausa man to do business. They've always done it. It's the biggest refinery in the world today. It's built by a northerner and it's built in Lagos. So why should that become a problem? Another one is being, I think another one, the Boa one is also coming up in Akwa Ibom, as the case may be. So it's important for us to understand that we should remove these cloaks of tribe and religion. By the way, religion is also between yourself and your God. So why should that become an issue when it comes to leadership? I think it's important that we also begin to look at the characters of the people. What have they done in the past? What kind of experiences do they bring to bear? This is an interesting country where people want to run the nation first before they run their personal businesses. You get to people who have not run, they haven't even married their wife and stayed together and, built a family that you can look and say, no, this is worthy of emulation. And they want to lead the country, even with having their homes in tatters.
I'm counting down.
Yes.
I've got a signal from my producer. Something very important to me. All this conversation, we began it with my exiting generation. Yes. But for the youth, how do we recruit them into this new thought? Because really this country belongs to them. So if we exit and leave it tattered, they suffer. How do we begin to recruit them into the new thought?
What I think is that they have to be involved. There's a book written by Ojukwu who said, because I'm involved. You don't make policies for people and want to impose those policies on them. And that's why one of the things that we're looking forward in this new administration is that the president made a speech and said that the young people will feature prominently in his government. By the time young people are involved, it's a lot easier for me to relate with people of my generation that it is, for you to relate with them. A situation where we feel that people have been in this position and they've continued to be in that position without wanting to give way. Power to the oppressed is demanded, not begged. You are likely to find, revolutions of some sort if people don't think that they are being carried along. So I think that the generation, the youths of today, should be on the table. They are no longer, they shouldn't just be there as agents of violence or agents for cultism, or you keep talking about them. No, they have to be on the table, and that engagement must continue. And we must raise this conversation at national level, at state level, at local government level, at the church level, at the political level, at the social level. Whichever way we need to be able to raise it, we have to raise it and let our voice be heard, so that people will begin to understand that a generation is going, another is also coming in, because there must be a baton. In a relay race, you run and hand over the baton. So the question is, what kind of baton are you handing over? Or are you still running and expecting the person you handed over the baton to be chasing you when you have finished your own race? So this is my conversation, and this is my submission, that we will continue to have this discussion, but that discussion has to be has to go on with the people concerned on the table so that they can actually make policies about themselves. They know where, he who wears the shoes knows where he's paying them. When you went to school, you probably were told that the moment you graduate from school, there's a job
In
waiting
fact,
for
there
you
was
there.
a job.
Today, exactly, there was a job waiting
And there
for
was
you.
a car.
Exactly, and there was a car waiting for you. Today, we have been to school. People have had first degree, had second degree. There are PhD holders that are professionals that are looking for jobs today. There are medical doctors that are out of school and they can find where to work. So times have changed. So I think it's important that they are on the table when these decisions and policies are being made by government so that they can contribute. If there are things, look at the population of a country. When you were, when you were in school, I'm sure you know the number. These days, I'm sure if you have to tell the story of your university days, you will probably have been the only person in your room. But these days, we are in the universities where it is shameful to talk about.
After dinner, now after your lunch, you have ice cream.
After your lunch, you have ice cream. But now, we have about 10, 20 people in one room in the university. And these are the kind of environments where people are actually coming out. So I think that attention has to be paid. The reason is because the population of this country, 75% of that number is under the age of 35. This is a time bomb that we're waiting for it to explode. So if it's something that I believe that if we pay the right attention to, provide for them, they need to be engaged, because when you have a booming population, that population can actually be turned to something productive. That's why I believe that we may not, even though we don't have the technology and the arms and the whatever in terms of the strong powers, we have the soft powers. Diplomacy is soft power. Talent in the creative industries, that will find expression in the form of music and in the form of arts and all of that, is also an opportunity that government can create. And this sector and these young people can actually contribute to the growth of a country. It's about your idea. It's about creativity. It's about what you can do that differentiates you. And you can actually sell it to the world. Talk about our food. Talk about our music. Talk about our movies. So I believe that a lot of young people can actually join once they have an understanding. They are not fools. The thinking is that some of these going generations don't care about them. But once you begin to let them know that you care, and that's by, first of all, involving them, and then having a discussion with them, the way it is. There are certain things you don't have to tell your children on the phone. There are certain discussions you must have face to face. So I believe that once that opportunity is created, I think we can find ways of closing this gap.
Your Excellency, I want to thank you very much for coming to the conversation.
Thank you so very much. It's my pleasure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, in the past 30 minutes or thereabout, I have been conversing with Nigeria's ambassador to Burundi, His Excellency Onyeagba. Very great, I've got it right. Our conversation never ends. Week after week, we're here. So please keep a date. Good afternoon.